All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. We thank you all for being here today. My name is Greg Wentz. I'm one of the academic staff that supports the Marriage and Family Therapy program here at USF. Just a quick things before we begin. Just make sure you are on mute and that your video is turned off. It helps with the streaming process a little bit better that way. And then what we'll do is you can update the chat with any questions you might have during the presentation. We'll try to get to all of your questions by the end of the presentation. We do have a part of our presentation where at the end we will answer any questions that you may have. So please, if you have any questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat. We'll get to them. And hopefully you've logged in, you saw the chat, you kind of introduced yourself. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I believe with our first slide, Dr. Henry, I'll let you have the floor and you can introduce our faculty and staff that are with us here today.
Thanks, Greg. So I'm Dr. Henry. I'm the program director. It's great to be here with you. It's always an exciting time of year with the application process beginning and the new group of students coming in. We have a few enough people that I think I'll have them each introduce themselves real quick. So Dr. Baxley, would you mind jumping on and just introducing yourself real quick? Or Dr. Kaufman, why don't you start?
Good morning, everybody. Excited that you're all here. My name is Dr. Kaufman. I'm a visiting professor here, and I help do the clinical instruction. I teach some of the classes. I also do some little bit of research here at the Institute, provide some supervision for all of you. Also have a private practice where I still do some clinical work. So we're excited to have everybody here today.
Dr. Buckles.
So I'm Dr. Buckles. I'm a clinical line instructor actually in the Rehabilitation and Mental Health Counseling program, but I am the director of the Addictions and Substance Abuse Certificate, which is something that would be available if you were accepted into the program that you could combine with your degree, as well as I do teach the substance abuse class and human growth and development to all the MFT students as well. So I'll get to know some of you throughout the time here. So welcome and looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Gabby, are you here? Okay, and then Dr. Baxley, are you back? Oh, there's Gabby. Gabby, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself. Welcome, by the way.
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm Gabby. Sorry I'm a little late. I was figuring out my webcam. I graduated the MFT program this July, and I am now working in a private practice called St. Petersburg Counseling. Don't need to say anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
We're going to have Gabby as our student and alumni rep to just answer questions from that perspective. So as we get into the question and answer section, she'll be able to help us out there. So go to the next slide, Greg. Well, you already introduced yourself? So yeah, we're good. So let's just run through the agenda for today. We're going to go through kind of the field of MFT in general, just to make sure that you kind of understand the difference between the different counseling fields and kind of what our specialty is in the field. We'll also go through some of the specific program highlights for our program, as well as what careers this type of degree leads to. We also will cover some of the academic and field placement components of the program, as well as licensure and capstone. And at the end, we'll have Greg go through the application process. We'll cover a lot of the questions you may have on the application process and admissions process, And then that'll kind of take us to the question and answer portion. So anything we don't answer in the presentation, we'll answer in the Q&A section. And if you have questions and you want to throw them out there, just put them onto the chat, and we'll kind of, we may wait to answer them until the end, but at least we'll have an ongoing list of questions that you have. All right, well, let's get started. Next slide. So this first slide, we're going to play a little video here, if it works. And the video is just of the field of MFT, and I think it's a nice introduction to kind of what our field is about and how we're unique to other fields.
Marriage and family therapy is an approach to therapy whereby relationships are privileged. So whether you're an individual, a couple, or a family, whatever's brought you into the office will be looked at in the context of your relationship.
It's such a vulnerable thing when people let you into their lives. These are the things that I'm most worried about. These are the things that I'm most scared about. These are the things that I don't let other people see. It's really an incredible feeling for somebody to let you in on that process and to get to be a partner in that process.
We see things such as health, illness, loss, trauma, and personal experiences in the context of relationships.
If a client comes in and they have depression, how does my depression affect the way that I'm communicating with my family, with friends, with a significant other, and how does their support help me deal and to cope with some of the different problems that I have?
The typical way that treatment works is people come in, they're struggling with some sort of problem. We take a look at that in terms of what relationships are informing that situation. In understanding the context, it then gives us an idea of what could change in terms of how they're trying to solve the problem that might make it possible for it to resolve effortlessly.
The holistic approach is beneficial because to me it's an act of radical hospitality. Someone comes in and they're going to share something that's often deeply personal, and maybe they haven't told anybody about it before.
It isn't uncommon for me to work with individuals. Certainly I work with a lot of couples, I work with a lot of families. I think one of the beauties of marriage and family therapy is that we can also think about families that extend beyond those that are in our home. We think about our work families. I work a lot with providers and their own self-care.
I am, as part of my education and my training, trained in a number of the different diagnoses, things like depression, anxiety.
I think that's the difference between marriage and family therapy and other kinds of therapists, is that we're always conscious of who's in your life, who's not in the room. When people call us as marriage and family therapists, they realize that whatever it is that they're facing, that they do not and cannot face it alone.
Even if we're working with an individual, we're thinking about that person in context. How does their situation, how does their circumstance, how does their suffering make sense in terms of what's been happening historically? And then understanding the contextual complexity of that, we look for how to introduce some kind of difference in that so that people aren't trying to continue making efforts that aren't helpful.
We live, I think, in an individualistic society, and in so many different ways we're isolated. But if we connect everybody back into relationships, I think that that really sustains the individual to grow and to develop and to achieve their highest potential.
So we show that clip to just start off, because we know a lot of you are deciding between different types of professions within the counseling field. Some of you are trying to decide if I want to go the path of social work or mental health counseling or marriage and family therapy. And I think the video really highlights the fact that in marriage and family therapy, our focus is relationships and how relationships impact our individual problems and also how our individual problems impact our relationships. So if you're somebody who really has a desire to work with people and their relationships, and that's the vehicle that you see yourself working through to help people, then this is the right profession for you, for sure. It's a good fit. All right, so the MFT mission statement for our program specifically, we do take the systemic, multicultural informed lens and how to help people improve their relationships in their lives. And we do this through education, training, clinical practice and research and theory. Next slide. All right, so what makes our program unique? There's a couple things that we wanted to touch on that make it unique. One is that the program is highly specialized in training to become a marriage and family therapist. So we're going to really have multiple classes on theory around working with relationships. You're going to have multiple classes on clinical application of those theories to the work that you're going to be doing with couples and families. You're also going to be trained on how to work with individuals because individuals are a system in them of themselves. And so we do work with individuals as well. We have a field experience where you're actually working in the field for 14 months. To be exact, and that is consecutive. So you have 14 months consecutive work in the field at an agency or practice where they're providing couple and family services. As a graduate of our program, you're eligible to be licensed as a marriage and family therapist in the state of Florida. Every state has different licensure requirements, and so there are some states that fit very nicely with Florida, and everything you do here will fit what that state requires. But there are some states that have additional courses or additional hours that are different from Florida. So that's important to be aware of as well. Our program is very small. We have a small cohort, 8 students per group is historically what we've had in our first 4 cohorts of students. This year we are growing the size of the program to 16, which is still a small cohort. And the nice thing about the smaller cohort size is that you get a lot of faculty mentoring, faculty attention. Gabby, maybe this is a good opportunity just as from a student's point of view, kind of what it was like to be in a small cohort and what was it like to have access to faculty like you did?
Yeah, I would say that that's how it felt faculty-wise, with especially the 3 of you, Dr. Baxley, Dr. Kaufman, and Dr. Henry. We had most of our classes with one of the 3 of you, and it really, and like you guys were always available, and just the frequency that we saw you because of those classes, and maybe like working on outside projects, just felt like got to know you a lot and received a lot of mentoring from you guys. And the other piece about that is that since it is such a small cohort, you get close with your peers. Because of the way the program is structured, you basically take all of the same classes, almost all of them. So you just become really close. And with 8 people, it's really easy to get a group chat going. And we started that like right when program started, and it's still going to this day. So that was a big benefit as well.
Thanks. Yeah, the nice thing about your cohort of other students is that that's your colleagues, right, moving forward in your career. And so if you can build that type of relationship while you're in grad school, those relationships last, like Gabby was just saying, into your careers, in future jobs, future letters of recommendation. All those things can come from those people that you've made connections with, referrals for clients. The other advantage to our program is it is a full-time program, and it is intense because of that, but it's also a lot quicker. So 6 semesters is what our program is. And then our clinical faculty are all very engaged in the clinical world. Dr. Baxley worked at the VA before starting. I've worked in both private practice as well as agency work, as well as Dr. Kaufman. Both Dr. Kaufman and I are still doing private practice, and so we're still engaged in that experience currently. Next slide. So careers. This is an important question, right? As you're thinking about programs, you're also thinking about your future after you graduate and what career paths are available to you with this degree. And so we've listed out all the different options of work in the field that an MFT would fit into. Out of this list, we have 2 graduated classes so far. We're a new program, but the 2 groups that we've gone through, we already have graduates working in private practice, working at the VA, in-home treatment, university settings, K through 12 school settings, outpatient units. So already, even just with the small group that have graduated from our program, you can see the variety of options that are available to students in terms of what type of careers are available to them from this degree and with that license. Gabby, you chose the path of private practice. Maybe just share just a minute about kind of that decision, how you came to that decision, and then how that's gone so far.
Yeah, so I mainly came to that decision because of my grad school journey. I became really interested in a particular modality that is most used for couples. It's beginning to be used for individuals as well and families. But that modality, I just really felt like super excited to specialize in seeing couples with that modality, EFT. And so from that, I kind of started my search, and I found the private practice in St. Pete that, like, all the therapists there work from that modality. So it has that kind of environment when you're consulting with your colleagues, everybody's coming from that same place. So I knew it would be a place where I could really grow and kind of what my interest in specializing was. And so far it's going really well. So they've been very welcoming to me. The thing about private practice is that you don't start from, you build up. So maybe in another job, if you were going to go to work for the school, you're going to go to work for a university or the VA, you're going to, go and you're going to get on the payroll and you're going to, start getting paid your salary and everything. But with private practice, you have to build up your caseload. So that's what I'm in the process of doing, is I get a few new clients each week to eventually, hopefully in 2 months, have that full-time caseload of clients. So it looks a little bit different, but I liked it because of the opportunity to specialize that I was going to have.
Great, thank you. All right, next slide. All right, so our program has 2 paths or tracks. One is just the MFT general track, which is preparing you to become a marriage and family therapist and get licensed. The second track, which we'll have Dr. Buckles talk more about in a minute, is to combine your MFT degree with a graduate certificate in addictions counseling. And so I'll let her talk about that in a little more detail in a minute. Next slide. So the program is full-time, like I was sharing earlier, which means that you're going to have 3 to 5 classes per semester. That's going to vary depending on what stage of the program you're in. As you'll see in a minute, the program starts off heavier course load to prepare you for practicum and field placement. And then once you're in field placement, then your classes drop off to more like 3 classes a semester, at 2, in some semesters even 2. So it is over 6 semesters, so it is intense, but it also really immerses you in the field and in the program to be going full-time. So that's how we've structured the program. We do not have a part-time option. Next slide. It is 60 credit hours to graduate. 42 of those credit hours are going to be core classes that everybody's going to have to take in the program. 6 credit electives that you get to choose, and I'll go through the list of electives in a second. And then you have 12 credits of field placement, and those are those credit hours that you'll be doing over 4 semesters. If you're going to combine the program with the certificate in substance abuse counseling, it actually ends up being 63 credits instead of 60. So there's an extra 3 credits required, which I'll have Dr. Baxley talk about in a minute. Next, or Buckles. Next slide. Okay, so plan a study. If you're in the general track and you are going through the program, this is the plan of study that you'll be going by. And as you can see, your fall semester, you have 4 classes. If you choose an elective, you're going to have 5 classes that first semester. Spring, same thing, 4 classes. If you choose an elective, you're going to have 5 classes in spring. And then summer, you will only have 2 classes plus field placement, which is your practicum 1. And then you can add a practicum or an elective to that if you would like. And then the next fall, as you can kind of see, everything drops off to 2 classes and a practicum with options for electives. Your last semester is just practicum. And that last semester is your last opportunity to collect the hours that are needed to graduate. And so we've left that open so that you had as much freedom and flexibility to focus on getting your last hours as necessary. What that does mean, though, is that if you are using financial aid, you will want to save 1 elective for your final semester so that you can pay for that final semester with financial aid. All right, next slide. So these are the electives that are available. These are the approved electives. We offer a medical family therapy and integrated healthcare class that's offered every other summer. We offer a trauma-informed individual, family, and couple treatment class that's offered every spring. We offer a group theories class, which is offered in the fall. And then we offer an individual family treatment with children and adolescents class in the fall. And then we offer a play therapy class that will be offered every other summer. So those are your electives. All right, I'm going to turn some time over to Dr. Buckles to talk about the certificate and the plan of study connected to that.
No, thank you. So the Addictions and Substance Abuse Counseling Certificate is a certificate designed to basically gain skills in working with individuals with substance use issues. As an MFT, you're definitely going to come across situations with families or couples where you're working with them and there is substance use present. In the dynamic, and understanding how that influences the system can be really important, and approaching that and knowing how to address the substance abuse issues that are going on. So it's definitely something that you can gain skills in working with these types of families and systems that you may approach in the field, as well as it does meet state level requirements to set you up for a state level certificate, which is called the Master's Certified Addictions Professional. So that certificate basically says it requires some supervision hours after, very similar to licensure, and they can be done in conjunction with each other's licensure. And basically it allows you to be seen as an MCAP, so somebody who knows how to treat addictions and understands the consequences and influences of addiction. So along with an MFT degree, that's basically showing as your professional identity that you are somebody who understands the influences of addictions on the system and how maybe the system can be used to support that individual and address some of the concepts that are going on. So what the certificate is it is 15 credits. So 2 of those 5 classes are a part of your general track. So those are classes that you would always take as part of your MFT degree. And then the other 3 classes, so 2 would be your electives, and you'd end up with 63. So the same thing as Dr. Henry was just referring, that with the certificate, it ends up being 63 credits. So you can see the plan of study with it laid out. So the professional skills in addictions counseling would be the first course that you would take if you were to follow this plan of study. It is flexible because the courses are independent of each other. So you don't need to have one course to kind of go into the other, but this is how it's laid out to kind of fit well into your plan. So the professional skills really goes into looking at substance use treatment dynamics, how it's structured in the state, the requirements and assessment and treatment. Counseling approaches for substance abusers, all students take. So that's your substance abuse course that you get as part of the MFT degree. And that's looking at theory-driven counseling, specifically focused on how it conceptualizes addictions and substance use issues. And we also spend about a quarter of the semester talking about the impact of addictions on the family and some of the consequences within the system that can occur when there is addiction. Fundamentals of substance abuse in your first summer, which is just your general information on substances, so uppers, downers, how they impact the body and so forth. And then looking at addiction treatment with special populations, which goes into really focusing on eating disorders, trauma, different types of unique things that'll come up, criminal justice involvement and so forth. And then your practicum is considered a part of that because in the way the state looks at it, any hours that you do in a job description of a counselor kind of match towards the experience that they're expecting for an MCAP to have. So then that would be your 5 classes that you take as part of your plan of study. So if anybody's interested in the addictions or feels like it would be something good to have knowledge in as you're working with families and couples, and like I said, you'll definitely come across it because addiction is so prevalent in our society, then, feel free to reach out and ask any questions you have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Baxley.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I missed the introductions. My computer just kind of went haywire, so I decided to join Dr. Kaufman to talk with you all today. But I am the field placement coordinator for the Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Dr. Henry mentioned a few little pieces of this, but this is like the best part, I think. It's why you're here, is to do the work, to get in the room and really start working with couples and families. So we've been strategic in designing what that looks like. And within our program, you'll begin your field experience in the 3rd semester. So you'll have your fall coursework, you'll have your spring coursework, and then you'll really get into that field experience. And that includes 4 consecutive semesters of field plan. So you'll be in there for 14 months, and we've designed that to be where you're completing your field placement at a single site, but because we've also connected with programs to help build in opportunities for some supplementary hours or different workshops or intensives or weekend brief camps so that you really get a variety of experience. Our program is very much focused on the clinical face-to-face client contact hours. So over those 14 months, you'll be getting 400 hours of face-to-face client contact. And because we are focused on relational work with families, half of those hours will be doing couple and family. We also like to build an opportunity to get involved with different group therapies. And so we built a maximum kind of capacity for that for 150 of those hours. 150 of those hours can be group therapy. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's just a brief look at our field experience map. So as mentioned, you'll start your practicum experience in that 3rd semester, which is practicum 1, and it's short. It's about 10 weeks long. And so you'll be really just kind of getting your feet wet in that semester. We're supporting you in just kind of refining those basic therapy skills, meeting with couples and families, getting an understanding of the agency or practice in which you're working. Then that moves into practicum 2 in the fall, where you kind of get some more support, some focused work on understanding and developing your own personal theory of change. How do you think change happens in the room, outside of the room, and starting to integrate some of that systemic theory into the work that you're doing. Then in practicum 3, a little bit more intense and kind of really enhancing that focus on theory, some specific interventions within your theory of choice. And then practicum 4 is kind of bringing it all together. That's when you'll be doing your capstone project. And I know Dr. Kaufman's going to share a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's kind of tying all the pieces together and really seeing your work with families, couples, individuals from beginning to end because of that consecutive field placement experience that I do think is unique to our program. Next slide. Okay, and then we're talking about the path to licensure. So once you've completed all of the degree requirements, you've done your academic work, you've gotten all of your, clinical hours in the program, and you graduate, which is the goal, right? That next step is to apply to be a registered marriage and family therapist intern with the state of Florida. And what that does is gives you, I don't know if they make them in paper anymore, but it gives you a registration to practice. And that's when you can start accruing hours under supervision of a licensed and qualified state supervisor towards your licensure. That is a minimum of a 2-year process, and it's the same across kind of all the 3 disciplines that you might be considering. So this path to licensure looks the same as a postgraduate in social work, as a postgraduate in a mental health counseling program as well. So I wanted to check in with Gabby because you've just recently kind of gone through that process a little bit. Do you have anything to share about kind of what that was like graduating and then moving into this next stage as a registered intern?
It was pretty straightforward. I found my supervisor through finding my job, because a lot of times at the job where you're going to work, they do offer supervision to you, not always, but sometimes. So I already had the person that I was going to apply, put down their name on my application as my supervisor. So I did that with the state, and it took like 5 weeks. And I was actually I wasn't sure if it was going to come in time by my start date. And I was able to call them and explain my situation, and they were able to expedite it. So from what I've learned, they're pretty responsive to phone calls and you explaining your situation. But I think in general, it takes like 5 weeks. And I don't think they do paper anymore. Yeah, I just got an email. So.
Yes, that makes sense. I think maybe they've moved to the digital age at this point. But it sounds like that time frame, from graduating to getting that registered intern number is pretty standard across the board for them to review all of the materials. But just to make that clear, right, that's the goal for graduates from our program, that we're providing you with this foundational knowledge, this clinical experience and training. Then you move into this minimum of a 2-year time where you're accruing your clinical hours under the supervision of a state qualified supervisor. You'll take a national exam as part of that, and then apply to become a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Florida. And once you get that license, that's when really you get that stamp of approval that you're an independent clinician at that point. So that link that you see on the slide is the link to the board website if you have any specific information you're looking for. Next slide.
Okay, so now that we talked about licensure, I'm sure some of you are thinking well, what is it that we're actually going to do for to graduate from this program? So something unique to our program is what we've done is we've created a capstone project. Instead of a national exam or a test, like an all-encompassing test, what we do is we're going to collect information from you throughout the semester and help you build a project. We're actually going to share your work with us. So meaning you're going to start taping as soon as you can, as soon as you get into your practicum experience. It's a part of it is taping it, reviewing your tapes. But through your assessment class, your theories class, you're going to start building and organizing your theory, and then collecting tapes and video segments that actually show your work. So it'll be like an all-encompassing project where you're going to select your theory. You're going to collect some data points through video or audio and help to show us how your couple, how your family is creating change through the process. So it's a really unique way for you to actually present your material to us. And it's really been a growth point also I think for some of our graduates to be able to actually see their own work and to be like, look, this is the couple that I worked with from beginning to finish, or, from 6 to 10 sessions. And to be able to lay out that foundation to show their work, their intervention, some of their skills, and to be able to comprehensively take that through an EFT lens, a solution focused lens. Some of them have used Gottman couples therapy, but it's a really great way for you to orchestrate your work and show it to us. And we look through assessment, some different variables, maybe diagnosis and things of that sort to help score that. And so that's a little bit about our capstone project and how we facilitate that.
All right. So hopefully you're all excited about our program and you're wondering, okay, well, what are my next steps? Like, how can I apply to this great program and hopefully get accepted? So we do have an application process with the university. So the first thing you could do is you could go ahead and check out our website. So that's that usf.edu/MFT. Or you could always just go on to the USF Graduate Studies website in order to get started with that application process to USF Graduate School. So we do have an admissions tab right on our website. You create your profile from there and then start your application. So some things that we want to mention is that the average GPA for our students, it fluctuates from year to year, but usually for the graduate school here at USF, you need to have a 3.0 GPA on all undergraduate coursework or higher. Although our incoming cohort usually is a little bit above that 3.0, maybe around a 3.4, 3.5. And we do take a look at GRE scores, and on average, our students score above the 300 score for the combined verbal and quantitative on the GRE. So we do have 16 spots for our cohort for this next year, which would be fall 2024. And were there any parts of your interview or that you could remember, Gabby, from when you were accepted into the program?
I think it looked different for me because I was still during like right after COVID, so it was online. But it was pretty welcoming because I know that they invite alumni and current students in the previous cohort to talk to you and spend some time with you, give you, like I think you do a tour of the school, and then the actual interview was with one faculty member. I think I interviewed with Dr. Buckles. So it's nothing too crazy.
All right, thank you, Gabby. So we'll go ahead and move along to the next slide. So we do have a deadline that we'd like you to have all of your information in. So that deadline is January 15th, and I'll stress that a few times throughout. So January 15th, 2024, and here are the things that you'll need to have a complete application. So the first thing is you're going to need a resume. So this can be a CV, it could be a resume, but basically a professional list of all of your educational work experiences that would need to be submitted as part of the graduate school admissions. We'd want you to have a personal statement. This could just be your reasoning behind why you would like to join the MFT program here at USF and what you hope to get out of this program. It could also be just a couple things about like your experiences that you have, or maybe some of the things that you're really excited about. We do want 3 letters of recommendation. So at least one from a professor is usually a good way to start. But if you've been out of school for a little while and you want to provide more work experiences, I would say you'd want to have at least one person who would be able to speak to your ability that you would have to learn new information. We do want the GRE scores. As far as the GRE goes, like we were looking for a score of around 300 or higher, and the transcripts of the 3.0 GPA or above. The only course that we require for our program is an undergraduate level statistics course, or an equivalent research methods course. This could be at the 2000 level or above. So usually students who will take like an introductory statistics, social science statistics, those would be sufficient. And the main reason why we want you to have statistics is because we're going to be talking a lot about research and theory and assessment in the future. And that's kind of that foundational level course you need for those courses you'll take in grad school. There is an accountability background and drug screen form that you would have to do for the university. So those things will come out once you're filling out your application for USF. And then, of course, there is a small app fee for graduate school here at USF. So once you submit all those things by that January 15th deadline, the faculty will go ahead and review the applicants, and then they'll start setting up those interviews. So those interviews usually will happen in the spring, anytime after that January 15th deadline. So you could expect to hear back if you've applied by January 15th, sometime during those next few months in the spring. And then once we have those interviews completed and the faculty score the applicants, then we will send out decisions. They usually go out via email, depending on what email you put in your graduate application. And some will be immediate, others may be through late spring. And the thing that we want to stress is trying to make it in by that January 15th. There's no guarantee that there will be spots available if you apply after that January 15th deadline. So that really is the priority deadline. Again, if there were spaces available in the program, they'll continue to interview, but there's no guarantee that they would look at your application. So some of you may be thinking, well, what?
Hold on, Greg,
yep.
1 second. Before you go on to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight the personal statement letter. Everything on your application is fact, right? It's like your scores, your GPA, letters of recommendation. The personal statement is your one opportunity to really set yourself apart from others by adding context, right? What is it about your lived experience that makes the field of marriage and family a good fit? Why is the field a good fit for you? So personalize those. I read every single letter and every single application completely, and so sometimes those personal statements are the deciding factor whether somebody gets an interview or not, when all the other things are equal. So make sure you take time, have somebody review it, make sure your writing is good, and it's also a writing sample for us to see how you write. So definitely get a couple people to review it before submitting.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. I'm sure that would have been some questions later on, like what could really separate me out as a great applicant for the program. So now I'll go on to the next slide. So I want to do a breakdown of program admissions. For a lot of our students here who are wondering, okay, well, is it just students from your university that you're accepting? Or are you looking for students outside your university? The thing is, we've accepted students from 14 different undergraduate programs over the last couple of years, and we've kind of displayed the logos here on this slide. So the thing is, yes, we do see students from our own institution, but we see students from a lot of other institutions as well. So we don't have like a bias here against where a student does their undergraduate work. The other thing that I usually get questions about is like, does a student have to have an undergraduate degree in a certain field? And again, we do see a lot of students come from psychology, child and family sciences, sociology, social work. But the thing is, as long as you have that interest in this field and you have that bachelor's degree already, then we do look at those personal statements and your interest in marriage and family therapy. We do anticipate to accept 16 students for the upcoming fall 2024 admission. And like I said before, January 15th is that priority deadline. So the last thing I want to cover with you, one of the last things, is the tuition and scholarship information. So if you currently are a person who lives in the state of Florida that's claiming the state of Florida for your residency, then the cost of tuition per credit hour for graduate school is that $431.43. If you are considered an out-of-state resident, so you're living outside the state of Florida, then that cost per credit hour can be $877.17 per credit hour. If you multiply that by the amount of credits you need per the program, I think I was talking about this before with Dr. Henry, it's in the mid-20s if you're for the entire program, so around 24 to 25,000 if you're in-state. For out-of-state, it'll be pretty much double that. So you're looking probably right around the $50,000 mark for the entire program. So there are a lot of different ways to pay for graduate school here at USF. So the one I'm going to really stress everyone to do before the deadline comes up this next spring is that FAFSA, which is just the general financial aid. You may remember this from your undergrad. It's that application that you apply for free student aid, and you can fill that out, and that's what's going to give you access to scholarships, to grants, to all of this great information that the United States has for college students. So I'd highly recommend filling out the FAFSA. Even if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get anything, still fill out the FAFSA because you never know. There are state and national scholarships that we do provide for our students just on a availability basis. And we'll let our students know if there are any scholarships out there that could help pay for your schooling. Depending on where you're working, if you're working during the program, there may be some employee benefits that you could tap into for a graduate program. So we do know this happens a lot with a lot of those agencies out there in the Tampa Bay area, where if you're currently working for a Tampa Bay agency, that they might be able to help assist you with scholarships and tuition. We do have a couple other things here at USF, such as graduate assistantships, teaching assistantships, and research assistantships, which could help provide tuition waivers. So these are like part-time positions that you get employed at the university, and then they can also help pay towards your graduate school as well. So we highly recommend students look into that pretty early on. So if you applied by January 15th, you know that you're in the program, start looking for those graduate assistantships and teaching assistantships. So with the teaching assistantship, it's usually with a professor. A graduate assistantship, you're usually providing a service for the university. So some students have done like the Honors College or the Counseling Center here on USF's campus in order to help pay for their tuition and scholarships in the past. So just some thoughts there. There's a lot of different ways, and we do offer some scholarship boot camps for our students. So then that way they could get prepared to apply for scholarships that are available. One of the last slides that we have here is just talking a little bit more about the student experience. We do have a student group within our college here called iLink, and this is a student organization that is run by students who are in both the CRMHC and also the MFT programs here. And it stands for Lead, Inspire, Network, and Connect. And it's a great way to just get involved with some of the things that our college is doing. We do offer a student mentorship program where we try to match students who are in the second year cohort with students who are incoming into the first year cohort. So then that way they can provide that mentorship and that easy transition going from not doing a graduate program to doing this marriage and family therapy graduate program. You do have a dedicated faculty advisor for each student. And like Dr. Henry mentioned earlier, the faculty that teach in the program are also the ones that advise you through the program. And then we do offer a variety of skill building events. These can help you out here at USF and beyond. So maybe it might be something like a field placement fair or a way to get you ready for doing interviews once you're trying to look for that job. So there are some skill building events that we do build into our curriculum here and just offer to students outside of the classroom. Gabby, would you like to speak about any of the things that you did during your student experience here?
Sure, yeah. I actually reached out to the Honors College and I was able to get a graduate assistantship that gave me a waiver for the first year. But then I decided to not continue the second year just to focus on practicum, but that was kind of like my personal choice. So that was an opportunity for me. And I also did the mentorship program where I was paired with a student that was 1 year. Wait, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Should I start over? Okay.
No, you were unmuted before. It's just that for some strange reason, it just muted you mid-sentence.
Oh, okay.
We heard everything except the up to the mentoring part. So when you were paired with a mentor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was a mentor, so I got to share what I had learned with a student that was just starting. I was able to share a lot of my experience finding a practicum site with her. Yeah, I was a part of iLink briefly. So we helped to organize some kind of student networking events, and that's a group where you can have like a voice if you're interested in doing some professional development things for the student body. Yeah, that's what I did.
All right, thank you, Gabby. So I think as far as our information session today, we'd like to thank you for joining us. And at this time, we will take any questions that you may have. We believe that the best way to do it is just to enter it into the chat here. and then we'll try to answer it the best that we can. I already see one in here. It says, can the letter of recommendation be from a professor from college if they are no longer at the college you graduated from? So I'll let Dr. Henry answer that one.
Yes. As long as they can speak to your performance in the classroom, it doesn't matter if they're no longer employed there.
All right, the next question we have on here, how do you give feedback during field placement with regards to how our sessions are going? Are there opportunities to get live feedback as well during class, for example? So I think Dr. Baxley and Dr. Kaufman can answer that one the best.
That's a great question. Yes, there's lots of opportunities for feedback. So when you're in the field, you'll be either audio or video recording your sessions. And then there's scheduled opportunities for you to bring in clips of your work to your practicum class, which is where you can get group supervision. So you'll be sitting with, each practicum class has 8 students, or that's like the cap. So 8 students for one faculty, and you can play your clip there. Your faculty will give feedback as well as your peers. But then there's also scheduled opportunities for individual supervision where you can also play clips of your work and get feedback from your faculty member. And additionally, the faculty in general is just always available if you have a specific question or would like additional feedback on some of your work and clips. And then we've also had times where Dr. Henry has done some live supervision. And so there are opportunities for students to bring in or invite their clients to come on campus and have a session here live with one of the student therapists. And Dr. Henry, maybe you should be the one sharing, but they wear a little earbud and are able to kind of get that feedback directly in real time and see kind of the impact of those adjustments from the faculty supervisor in their session on campus, which is really cool. So there's a lot of variety in ways we provide that feedback and mentoring.
Yeah, Gabby's actually brought in a client and did a live. So maybe you could share a little about that experience and whether it was helpful.
Sure. Yeah, that was like in the practicum 3, so in the second spring. I had been working with one of my couples for maybe like 3 months, and in Dr. Henry's class had the opportunity to bring them in for a live session if they wanted to, and they said yes. So they actually came in and we actually did a co-therapy, Dr. Henry and I, and we were live streaming it to the rest of my peers in the class next door. So it was super cool. And then afterwards we got to debrief with everyone and the clients because they said it was okay. We all kind of debriefed together in the classroom. So that was really great for me to be able to do co-therapy with Dr. Henry, but also my peers to see that happening in action.
Thanks. Other questions?
So I see a few more. I'm trying to find the answer to when do applications open for fall 2025. I think they'll probably open next year in the fall. So if you're thinking like a year out, then that application would just need to be due January 15th, roughly, of 2025. So what I would probably recommend is at least starting that application. I think they open like September or October of the year prior. So you should be able to start doing your graduate school application that about a year prior to when you plan on starting here at USF. Another question we have was, does your university also offer a PhD or Psych D program? I don't know who wants to answer that one. I could let Dr. Henry answer that one.
Yeah, so I know there's a PhD program in psychology. I don't know what specialty it covers. I do not believe it's a PsyD. I believe it's a research PhD program. And there is no PhD program in marriage and family therapy or counseling, but we do have students that have left and gone, like after graduating, gone on to PhD programs at other universities.
All right, thank you. I'm just taking a look at some of these other ones here. If your GPA is not a 3.0, but GRE scores and application meet standards, would they still be accepted into the program? I'm not too sure about that one, just because I believe that that's a USF graduate school requirement, not so much an MFT requirement.
So the university requirement is a 3.0 or above on your GPA. Everything else, we have ability to look at the full application and decide as a whole candidate, right? Based on your letters, your recommendations, GPA, all of it together, a whole package. We can, your clinical experience, all that we can use to decide whether you're a good fit for the program. But the GPA is out of our hands. That has to be at least a 3.0.
All right, I'm just taking a look through all these. I'm trying to answer some that I can answer just through the chat. So I'm trying to answer, like, how long does a person have to live in Florida to be considered in-state? Usually it's that 12-month or 1-year time period that you need to be living in the state of Florida to be considered an in-state resident. And there are different things on USF's website on how you could get that in-state residency factor. Are there any positions available for international students as well? And if so, what qualifications and qualities are you guys looking for in them? So I do know that we have accepted international students before for some of our other programs, and there are ways for international students to get involved with these programs. But usually you'd have to go through like the international student admissions as well for USF and provide maybe a few additional materials, including especially with like the way that your transcripts are sent over. They have to be vetted through like an English process if they weren't in English before. So there are some extra steps to take if you are an international student, but it is possible to do it as an international student.
Yeah, just a couple of things to keep in mind if you're an international student. Because it's a licensed field, you want to make sure that if you're going to move back to your country of origin, that they will accept a degree from the US and that it would meet licensure requirements in the country that you live in. We have had students who've run into issues with that in certain countries and have had to redo some or all of their degree in their home country to qualify for their licensure in that country. So it's just something to think about, since it is a licensable field, that you want to make sure everything you do is leading to your ultimate goal.
All right, just a few more questions. I want to be respectful of everyone's time because I know that they'll have to jump off and attend other things. Is there a page or word count for the personal statement? Dr. Henry, would you be able to answer that one?
There's no page or word count, but I think it's a good exercise in being strategic about what you share and not be over wordy. I would keep it to a page and a half to 2 pages max.
All right. And with that, I believe we've answered everything. If we haven't, you could always go ahead and email either myself or the group. But we thank you so much, for attending with us today. And we will share this recording and we will also update it to our website. So thank you so much for attending with us today, and have a great day. Go Bulls.
Bye, thank you.